If you clicked on this video, then you probably know what it's about, but maybe you don't. Don't worry, I will tell you. About 2 years ago, I bought a bite-sized clown because I was very desperate for one. I didn't even bother to ask for pictures of the actual clown, and when it got here, it was in very poor shape. The head wasn't even attached to the body, as the latex had already started to deteriorate. I even made a video about fixing it. Don't watch it, please. It's bad. But much like any dry rotting piece of latex, you fix one part and another part is going to crack in the future until eventually you have a whole latex mask that's covered in rubber cement and shop towels. I want to show you what my clown was. Here is the clown that was bite size at one point. This is the original. And as you can see, he is in very rough shape. There's cracks all here in the chin. It's starting to show very much. Even in the nose, there's a bad hole. It's just gone. The neck is starting to collapse on itself right here. You can see more cracks starting to form. Deformities right here. Doesn't make any sense. Why is it so kinked like that? There's just cracks starting to show everywhere. There are a few spots that are still soft, like in the ear out of all the places. Usually those are the first to go. The back of the head still has some softness right here. It still says Goodnight Kiss 2009. That's nice. Never understood why it says that. But hey, the repair that I did 2 years ago is still holding up strong. It's right here at the base of the neck. You can still see it. It looks fine. But like I said, this stuff, once you fix one spot, another spot's gonna go bad. And perhaps the most outrageous part is like right here, it's just gone. Like I fit my whole probably hand through that thing. And not to mention that the latex that was used here, it was very thin, very cheap, and it just made it so that you couldn't really save it, you know. With some higher end quality props, if there's a crack here or there, you could probably go in there and refill it with latex and give it a new coat of paint and it'll be fine for a while. But this just makes it really hard. It wasn't just the head though, the hands were also falling apart. When I took it out of the box for the 2024 season for the haunted house, the hand was the pinky was just falling off. As you can see, I was just too lazy to even like patch it up, that I just added some blue paper shop towels and rubber cement just to hold the pinky on so that he didn't only have 4 fingers. This is really a bad piece. It's just totally, all the fingers are totally like deformed, and it's gonna crack if I drop it on the floor, and it's gonna go into a billion pieces. The fist, on the other hand, is actually probably the nicest part, I would say. This is all still very soft and squishy, but up here at the top by the rat is all pretty solid hard at this point. If I just crunch it up, it'll just... So it was at this point that I have 2 choices. Either I try and find a new one, where it too will dry rot one day, or take my chances sculpting a brand new sculpture and having its mold last for decades. Can you guess which one I picked? I chose the second option. I started molding the hands as I thought they'd be the easiest. I wasn't too worried about getting it one for one, because they're just gloves, really. No one is really going to be paying an absurd amount of attention to them. As long as I was in the general ballpark, I would be pretty happy. One thing that I was kind of concerned about was the texturing of the gloves. And this is what I used with my clay sculptures. This is something that's very similar to that of screen mesh that's on windows in a house here in the Midwest. This is called pet screen. It's a little heavier duty, I would say. I wanted to have something that was a little more apparent than the original texture so that you could really see the washes that I put on in the later stage when I come to paint it. I wanted to make sure that it stuck out really well, that you could see all the crevices. So this stuff is what I went with. For the hand that was holding the rat, I had a lot of fun interpreting all the guts of the severed head. Doing my first really gory thing. God, that sounds pretty messed up. I'm not saying I like to sever rats' necks, okay? Like, not what I'm saying. Like, I've never done anything gory with, okay. I've never done anything gory with sculpting before, and I thought that was a fun thing to do because I watch Ed Edmonds do it all the time, and I'm like, I'm sculpting a skull or some skeletal hands. I'm not doing anything fun yet. So that was my first, whatever. whatever. Speaking of the rat, you probably realize that the hand is missing the tail end of the rat, and that is because it was a separated latex piece that gets glued onto the hand when it's all completed. Once everything was ready to go, I made the plaster molds of each of these clay sculptures. The two hands were 2-part molds, while I got away with a 1-part mold for the rat. After this, I made casts of each of the parts and was ready to test different paint schemes. And right here is one of the hands. This is his right hand, and it came out pretty well. This is actually what I'm going to be using as my master mold. There were some errors that I had to clean up with the first pulls, but this one came out pretty well. It's all filled with the foam, so hopefully it gives me a good representation of what my original sculpture was. I had a good idea on how I was going to paint these right off the bat. You can kind of see the hands behind me, and that is the finished product that I came up with. I think that was the best variant. But when I was looking at the original hand, this is the original hand, if you look at the base where the glue once was, it looks like when I ripped off the glue, I ripped off the ink that was a part of it, which was very interesting. And under that ink is a white base color. So the gloves, to my knowledge or my understanding so far, is that the gloves were painted in a base color of white, and then a dark gray blackish wash was just painted over, and then we did the rub out method with the sponge. And that is what I got from all of that. So that's exactly what I did here, and that's exactly what I did with these hands back here. They were painted with a white base color, the same color that I used for the actual head itself. Thinking in the mindset of mass production, they're probably going to use colors that are very similar to that of each other. So the white on the head is going to be the white on the gloves. And then I just mixed up a black wash with a hint of brown and applied that to the hand, and that accentuated all the detailing here. And then a final thing was a highlight of a desert sand color to give it this like orangish or like tannish hue to it. That was the same thing that I did with the fist holding the rat, but of course with the rat there are some extra things I have to do. I mixed up a color of a blue that I just found at an arts craft store. I wasn't too worried about getting the color too close because again, it's something that not a lot of people are really going to look at. As long as it's a dark blue, I think we're close enough. And same with the paws of the rat. There was just a pink color that I thought looked close enough. It's a little more vibrant, but I kind of like the vibrance of these colors. I kind of like the stuff popping out just for some reason instead of it being all dulled down. And then the favorite part of painting the red and the guts at the stump of the rat's like neck area. That was used with just red ink, and then the food coloring mixture for the blood that drips down the hands, and that was all applied with a brush. With those parts all done, it was time to do the head. Like everything else, it started off as a glob of clay. Using the original as a reference, I slowly created a heavily inspired rendition of the clown. Unlike the hands, I really wanted to bear close resemblance to that of the original.
Okay, I think I got a good enough starting point here to work on. The neck is a little longer so that I can work under the neck a little easier, so it's going to be something like that. So okay, already you can see that the eyes need to be a little higher. The nose almost looks in a good shape. The mouth appears to be in the right general vicinity. The chin needs to be built up a little more, it looks like. Overall, it's a decent starting point, but now I'm going to be taking my calipers and my measuring devices to just try and just replicate anything that I think is a major important point. So here, like, you definitely want the mouth to be accurate. So you want the mouth, like the grin, you want to make sure that it's around the same point. The teeth is going to probably be one of the last things I work on. I also want the cheekbones to be very prominent like they are on here, and I want this part to be very apparent as well. These little divots, this really huge grin that he has. The eyes need to be recessed a little bit. Another thing that's funny is that the ears, this ear is very like flattened out. It's very crunched together, squished in a way, and then this one's like totally like normal looking. and I don't really know if I'm going to try and replicate it exactly like this, or if I'm going to try and make the ears actually look symmetrical. I don't know yet, but I think so far it's okay. It's okay. We're getting somewhere.
The eyes of the clown are plastic inserts that were applied after the mask was casted, and I was very concerned about those eyes being off when I was sculpting him. So I added the eyes into the mold to be sure that they were dead accurate. Another thing that was troubling to me was the texturing that was on his face. I think the intentions were that they were to be pores, but they were very much spread out to normal pores on a human. For this, I used a hairbrush that had a somewhat random pattern on it. Sorry, Mom. At this point, it was ready for molding.
Just want to document here, we're almost halfway done here. Got the first half of the plaster mold done. That was the easier side, or the less detailed side, so it's not a big deal. I did have some problems with the ears. The one ear was really starting to crack from the dried clay, so it's like fine. I can probably fill it with latex when the mask is done. I'm not worried about it. But it's basically ready to go. I use lemon pledge as the seal between the plaster pieces. So I spray this whole cavity here with the lemon pledge and then the wood. It actually seems like it's really easy. I used to do the paint method, but I like to paint the clay because it kind of protects the clay a little bit. But the lemon pledge really makes it easy just to break apart the mold. But yeah, he's going okay. So we're about to cover up the eyes, and I want to make sure to get the teeth all good. That's my concern. So I'm going to be using a very fine brush to get in there and paint all the plaster. Hopefully get all the detail, get under the chin, and just worried about these eyes. Hopefully I'm able to retrieve them once I'm done. We will see. It appears we have had success with the mold. Here it is. This is the negative. The detail looks pretty good. There were some air holes that I had to patch up. I did patch them up here, right here. This white spot right here was a big air hole, and then there was another one down in the chin that isn't really going to be that noticeable. But I just cleaned it up because you should. And then there was another one right here. You can barely tell. Not too sure why there's so much porosity around here on the mold. I was using the lemon pledge, and I'm wondering if that like made a reaction with the plaster or what. And I've also just been getting a lot more air holes than I usually do, so I'm not sure why. And then just recently, this mold has been sitting here for like the last 2 days, and I added a third layer of plaster just now. Because the nose seemed like it was sticking out a little too close to the edge for my liking. It was only like a 3/4 of an inch thickness, so I wanted to thicken that up just a little bit. I think like an inch around is good, because you got to think like this is where it's going to be resting a lot of its weight usually, so I don't want to be risking cracking up the nose. So I just added a little more just in case. And yeah, I think we're pretty good here for our first casting of a new bite-sized clown. There's the other one. That one looks fine. Not too worried about that.
So this was the first pull that I actually pulled out. I just wanted to get a mask to have an idea on how to paint it. And this was my original. There was still some clay that was stuck in the teeth, so his teeth were like really dulled down, and there were some other imperfections that I had to clean out for the next future molds. But it was a good starting point. The mold came out very clean. Again, like the original, I kept the back very plain. Nothing is going on in the back because he's covered up with hair. The original intentions for this design were to have the nose be an ink color. It was an ink red. I can't remember the color. It's either like flame red. It might have been flame red of FW ink. The eyes were black latex paint with the mixture of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 water, 1/3 latex, and then 1/3 interior latex paint. That was the same with the base. For the head itself, it was a white variant. His blushing is FW ink. I did like the color a lot, but unfortunately it's like pearlescent. There's like little metallic things that if you see in person, it looks kind of weird if it's shown in the right lighting. And I used that same color for the lips and stuff. I wasn't too happy with that. So in the later paint scheme, I got rid of that. I mixed two different inks together to get a close pink, and again, it's a little more vibrant than the original, I think, but I'm very happy with it. The teeth are just acrylic paint, just painted on. I wasn't too worried about latex and it not adhering. It's such a small area. It's already covered in a white latex paint. And then you just have the shadowing of everywhere else. That's just an ink color. But overall, it was a good molding here and a good paint job, I think. I just made some little adjustments for the final production. And yeah, very happy. And the best thing about this is that I can do this without it falling into a billion pieces. And the smell just doesn't smell like that horrendous smell of dry rot. It's nauseating. This just smells clean and new and just better, I think. The one thing that I'm still on trying to figure out about are the pores. These don't really look that close. Like, it's the same intentions, but the finishing that was on the original model is so different from this. Like, you can't really tell from afar, but if you really get up close, you can kind of see variations. I'm really curious to know exactly what they used for the pore texturing on the whole head. Just very curious on what that tool was, because I can't find really anything that is similar to it.
Okay, so this is the second pull here. It's been sitting under the fan all night, so hopefully it's ready to get pulled out. This is the one I would hopefully like to have on as my actual bite-sized clown's head. The first one I made was just to test. Some of the clay was still stuck in the mold, so it wasn't perfect and stuff. But this is the one I want to use as my own. But to do that first, that means it needs to get filled with foam. Originally they came with like styrofoam balls and it was like really cheap. And I'm going to attempt to try and do that. Maybe for some future ones with the thicker latex, maybe it won't be that bad and just fill it with the pillow stuffing. But for mine, I want to have foam filling. It's more expensive, but it should just be better quality, I would think. I have my negative right here. It's just like a balloon with some packaging, and this just gets shoved inside here after I fill it up with the foam. And I'll just push that in and just hold it in, and hopefully all the foam comes all the way around and just fills it up pretty cleanly. That's the goal. So I'll get back to you when I do that, and we'll see what the outcome is. Alright, so that one was a bust. See all the blemishes here. It was still wet after like 18 hours of drying in the eyebrow too. So that one is just for test painting at this point. There's some colors I want to test out. Here is another one that I just made. See, it's like, look, it's like white here still, so it's like insinuating that it's still a little wet. It's just crazy, because this has been sitting in here for over a day at this point. But it still feels cold up here. I'm hoping that we have a better outcome here. I used less latex on this, so it's not as thick, and had it laying opposite, so the face was upward, so if there are any blemishes, it would be down here, and it looks like none. So hopefully everything drained out nicely. So I'm anxious. All right, I pulled it out. Looks not bad. There's a few blemishes, but those can all get patched up. A few air pockets in the teeth. That's annoying, but that can all get fixed. It's not like totally gone. So that's good.
I was ready to put all the pieces back on, and it was here that tragedy struck. I put his hands back on, and I wanted to see him work with the new hands, so I turned him on. He worked once. I went to activate him again. Nothing. No life at all. Yeah, so it was pretty devastating seeing it all come together, and then I go to try and test him, and then he just stops working. I thought at the beginning, like, oh, maybe the batteries are dying. Even though they were Energizers and they weren't really that old, I still changed them, and still nothing. He was still doing absolutely nothing. So it was at that point where I was like, okay, something is not right here. I opened him up, and what's nice about the bite-sized clown is that unlike other animatronics of the era, instead of everything just being soldered to the board itself, he comes with plugs where you can easily just remove the circuit board from the base and test it and check it out on your own here. And here it is. This is his original board. I went around, it's very basic. There's not much going on for him considering it's just a motor and some sound. Yet again, at this point, I had two choices. Either try to find a new one where it too will one day dry rot, or fix this one's internals. I chose the second option. First, I assessed the original board, and I was struggling here. Usually when a prop isn't doing anything, a possible reason is that power isn't getting to the chip on board. But it was. So next, I checked all the transistors, and all seemed okay. At this point, I noticed a slight bulge in the COB, making me think that somehow the COB went bad, which I'm very concerned about if that's the case, because while this thing was in my possession for the past 2.5 years, it was well taken care of, never gotten wet, never applied too much voltage to it. It should not really be going bad if it was this well taken care of. The most important part of the puzzle just died right before my eyes. I'm not 100% sure if this board is unsalvageable, so once again, I have two options. Either try to find a new one where it too will one day dry rot, or use an Arduino to replicate the animation. I chose the second option. I started watching a video by the Maker's Cave and how he brought a deadlift zombie back to life. If you don't know who the Maker's Cave is, it was an awesome YouTube channel of a person named Steve who would go around doing a lot of electronic stuff, and the thing that caught my eye the most was the animatronic realm of Halloween props and all the stuff that he was doing with Arduinos and sound chips and just a lot of fun things. This was the person who made a video on how to do auxiliary input on the speaker jacks for animatronics. I was using his method when it comes to getting Uncle Charlie and Grinning Gertrude to sound a lot louder. He hasn't made a video in quite some time, and it had come to my attention that unfortunately Steve has passed away unexpectedly, which is very upsetting to hear considering he's done a lot of amazing things for the Haunter community. Taught me a lot of stuff through his YouTube channel, and was one of the main reasons that inspired me to do what I did over here. So rest in peace, Steve. I'm sure you're making amazing electronic gadgets up in heaven. I also watched a little bit of Rachel DeBarros videos on similar projects, and with that, I came up with my prototype. In this box is my prototype of what I came up with. It's a bunch of wires and breadboards that are just splattered everywhere like spaghetti, but it did work, and this is what I used. I'm gonna try and show it to you, hopefully. Here we go. You can kind of see it here. You have the main Arduino. I was using an Arduino Nano since it's very small and compact, and for the bite-sized clown, he doesn't have that much going on with him in terms of just movements and stuff. So the Arduino Nano was able to tackle the job very easily. Up here you have the motor driver, and then right here you have the sound chip that has an SD card, which I downloaded, found a decent video of the bite-sized clown, ran it through Audacity, cleaned it up a little bit. I don't really know how to do any of that, but for the speaker that he's running the sound on, you can't tell. In the video you can hear like the motor buzzing in the background a little bit, but once you put it on the speaker, that all gets drowned out by his own motion when he's working. Like everything was accessible online. I just applied it to how the bite-sized clown worked, basically. So don't let it be really a challenging topic for yourself if you want to attempt something with an Arduino, because once again, a lot of the stuff is out there. You just have to have some basic level of understanding, and if you don't have that understanding, watching some very simple YouTube videos on just how Arduinos work, or like how to get a motion sensor to activate something, surely will help you along your way. I would totally recommend watching the Maker's Cave's video on the deadlift zombie repair, because again, for me, that was the main driving factor that got this working. And something like Bite-Sized Clown is a very good one to start on, considering of how basic his animation is. He isn't something that has a bunch of relays and mouth synchronization, which is a whole nother topic, something I still want to figure out. But all in all, just don't let it intimidate you, because it is fairly basic. Usually I'm a purist with these animatronics, but since this particular Bite-Sized Clown is no longer original, I decided to give him a few upgrades. He now runs off of a 6-volt 2-amp adapter, standard for modern Spirit animatronics, and also has an IR sensor, which is much better than its original. With that done, it was time to make a second prototype. This time, everything was soldered and permanent connections were made. I eventually want to make my own design using a custom PCB, but for now, this will do. So that is the story of how this bite-sized clown became my kryptonite. The amount of ups and downs that this thing did to me was incredible over the course of the last few weeks. But fortunately, I was successful with replacing all the latex pieces with brand new, higher quality pieces that are foam filled and a much thicker latex, as well as creating a Arduino based design for a new circuit board that, in my opinion, is a lot better and more durable and also a lot more serviceable, considering if something goes bad, instead of replacing a super tiny component, you just replace the whole IR sensor board. It's not that difficult. Everything is made to be interchangeable if something goes bad or blows up or whatever. It's all fixable. So with that out of the way, let's go and check out this brand new bite-sized clown. All right, so you've heard of the story with this bite-sized clown and how it has been the bane of my existence. But did all that work really pay off? Let's find out. Let's really find out, because honestly, I don't know if this thing's gonna work every time I plug him in. So let's just open it up here. So, like all props, usually, I like to put bags on my latex parts. Here he is. I'm gonna put him up on the table here. Oh, great. So, here he is, all put together. He has a plywood base on him for the reason of that his base is warping up, and you can kind of see that right here. This makes him a little quieter because before he was like really loud and it was obnoxious. And let's just pull off these plastic protective bags. It's all for looks. And then here is the most important part. There he is. His hair is a little flat from the bag. We can make that look a little better. So there is the new latex mask for the bite-sized clown with the eye inserts already put in. These were actually generously donated to me by Dr. Cocter. These were from one of his collections of bite-sized clowns. He seemed to have a lot go through his possession over the years, but this was the one of the really bad one of his. So thanks to him, I have a nice set. Mine were all covered in clay and stuff, and then I ended up shorting out the LEDs, but we won't talk about that. You can see that I did update the mouth with a little more of a nicer blood texture, or just color rather, right here. This is a combination of what Distortions Unlimited uses. This is food coloring mixed with Liquitex gloss medium. It's like the paste version. But yeah, it just looks more like real blood, really. And then you can see that as well with the hand. It's the same blood material. It's the same blood food coloring mix. And you can just really see the detail on this hand up close here. But you can see all the texturing from the screen that I used in the original clay sculpture. And then looking down, you can see the rat's tail. I wish the tail was a little longer. I might end up going back one day to resculpt this rat because I had air in the plastering that broke off the tail, unfortunately, mid-plaster molding. But it's not a big deal, and the tail is still, I think, long enough to sell the effect. But maybe in the future I'll make a longer one. And then here is that other hand. Not much going on with this one. Overall, it's the same texture. This one I filled with foam to make sure that it really lasts for a long time. But the main thing that everyone's going to be looking at is that face. And you can see up close, it's pretty dead on. There are variances between that and to the original. But I think anyone who really doesn't know exactly all the details of the bite-sized clown are going to be able to notice that, hey, it's the clown, and you can't really tell much of a difference. The side profile, I think, is the most obvious thing. The original was a little deeper with the mouth and stuff, a little more 3D, I guess, but overall, you can't really tell. And the hair and the paint really hides any like blemishes or any imperfections. The paint does a lot of heavy lifting, I gotta say. But now let's turn him around here and let's see some of those internal parts that have been replaced with him. Like I said earlier, this bite-sized clown has been improved, some may say. So as you can see, he has a stress relief for his power cord, which is just a normal barrel jack. as well as a cord for try me functions. So those are tied up and you can't yank out the cord from the soldering. And then if we tilt them over a little more, we can start to see a lot of the internals that's going on here. It looks like very complicated right now, but that's just because basically this is a enlarged circuit board. You have your motor driver right here. This is what gives power to the motor because the Arduino is not able to give enough amperage to power a DC motor. Up here is your sensor circuit. Usually the IR sensor comes mounted right here, but you can see this white cable. I elongated the connection so that this goes to his actual knee where the original light sensor would have been. And then deep in the back here, you can see the Arduino as well as the little mini player, and then all the plugs from his original design just plug on to this new board, so that if I ever wanted to really take this all out and replace it with original parts, or like replace it with a more mini circuit board, you could easily do that by just unplugging his original plugs. So right now I still have it where it's like opened up. I eventually want to add just Velcro all the way around here so I can unvelcro it to get in there if I ever needed to. But for now, it's fine. You can't really tell. And it's his backside. No one ever sees back there. So let's take out his cord. Again, this is a normal 6-volt 2-amp adapter. And it just plugs into the back of him right here, like any normal animatronic from modern times. And then we'll just plug that in. Now, if everything works according to plan, he should fire up without his sound for a setup phase. I'm not sure why he does this at first, but it's been like this ever since I coded him up. I'm not sure if it's a problem with the code or what, but he'll go through his motion without any sound. And then the next time he goes around, he will actually have the sound included. So we'll just wait. It takes about 30 seconds or so for there we go. So you can see him shaking. He's doing it very quietly, thanks to that wood base. And hopefully next go around he will have his sound. Alright, so he's quiet now. Give a wave to that sensor here. And there we go. I apologize for the darkness right now, but here's something that an original bite size would never be able to do. We are in a dark room, and he is going to activate by my IR heat of my body. If I just keep walking over here, he should activate eventually. There we go. And you can see his red eyes are still piercing red. Very nice. And then I was able to code it so that he works on sensor, but also a try me function. And just like the original model, when you plug in a try me feature, he will shut off his sensor. It will override his sensor. So if we sway my hand in front of the motion sensor right now, he works. But if we go behind him here, and I'm going to plug in his try me function, he still goes through his phrase right here. But now, if I wave my hand, nothing's happening. His sensor is being overridden, and now he's only going to work on this. Alright, so I brought up his barrel. Let's do a nighttime demo of the bite-sized clown, the new and improved bite-sized clown. If he were to be remade in 2025 or in the years after, this is definitely what I would want to see. So there's his demo, and there was his whole story on the restoration process that I just went through. Hopefully I don't have to do it again for a whole another year. And hopefully I never have to do a circuit board rebuild like that ever again. But that was the Bite-Sized Clown. My name is Devin, and I just got brand new glasses. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.